All right, we are live. It is Monday morning. As you guys know, I always talk about some takeaways from the week of fantasy football, just some immediate takeaways. Me and my, caffeinated beverage in the morning. We're just going to chop it up in here. I'll wait for some people to file in, but basically, I'm gonna get to the first takeaway, and it's pretty obvious. Those of you guys that watch the games know that this is probably the biggest takeaway. It's probably the Aaron Jones injury. With Aaron Jones, by all reports, it sounds like a grade 2 mid MCL sprain based on what I've kind of read on the Twitter space and stuff like that. It looks like it's going to be like a 3, 5, 6 week injury. That's the timelines that I've seen from fantasy doctors and things of that nature. So that's kind of what we're looking at with the Aaron Jones injury. I'm thinking right now, first of all, if AJ Dillon is on your waiver wire, every last dollar of fab needs to be dropped on him because he is clearly probably the biggest running back pickup of the year if he's on the waiver wire. Now, he probably is owned in your league. If you have A.J. Dillon, you just got a top 12 running back the rest of the season, in my opinion. I was a big A.J. Dillon fan coming out of Boston College. I thought he was just completely scrutinized for no reason. I don't know why people didn't like A.J. Dillon. When I watched A.J. Dillon in college, I saw, like Jordan Howard, like prime Jordan Howard with the Bears. I was like, this guy is a pro running back. He looks like a pro running back. He's going to be good if he's given an opportunity. And I really wanted him to go to Buffalo when he was coming out of the draft. If he would have went to Buffalo instead of Zach Moss, who I thought he was just a way better prospect than Zach Moss. If he would have went to Buffalo instead of Zach Moss, he would be a top 24, top 20 dynasty running back right now. I'm 100% confident in saying that about A.J. Dillon, but unfortunately he went to Green Bay, was behind Aaron Jones, but he's getting his opportunity now. And I'm telling you right now, this dude is going to be great with his opportunity because every time he gets the ball, he's phenomenal. He's one of the best running backs pretty much over the last 2 years at creating missed tackles and yards after contact. He is just, he's a 240-pound running back that has juice, that has speed, that has explosiveness. And I'm not calling him Derrick Henry, but Derrick Henry is the only other running back that has the size and speed combination that A.J. Dillon has. Obviously, he's not as good as Derrick Henry, but he is still very explosive in his own right. So that is the biggest takeaway of week 10, obviously, is the Aaron Jones injury. If you have Aaron Jones, I'm honestly like, I don't have him anywhere, thankfully, in any of my redraft leagues or my dynasty leagues, but Aaron Jones is probably going to be out until the fantasy playoffs at minimum, I would say. Like, if you start your playoffs in week 14, week 15, I would say that's probably the first time that we're going to see Aaron Jones come back. But even then, like, this is a playoff team, right? Like, they're not going to force Aaron Jones back at any point. So I'd imagine they have a great backup, like I said, in A.J. Dillon. So what they're probably going to do is rest him until, week 15, week 16, which is what I would guess. That's like about 5 weeks from now. That's like the tail end of the timeline. 3 to 6 weeks is what we've kind of seen. Hopefully he's back in 3 weeks for those of you guys that have him, but I'd imagine they're going to be pretty cautious with him. So we got some people in the chat now. Of course, Nate, we live. Yep. We are live. How did you do in your lineup or your matchup this week in the listener league? I was able to finally squeak out a win despite losing some tough ones the past couple weeks so far. So definitely good to see there. Matt says AJ Dillon stonks. Yep, just talked about it. He's definitely going to be, like I said, if he is available in your league, you drop every last dime of your fab on him. He's going to be a top 12 running back for me going forward until Jones is back. Aggie says finally won't have to deal with starting Jones or Dillon and getting disappointed by Jones. I'm guessing you have both of them on your roster. Honestly, if you had both, like if you were handcuffing Aaron Jones with AJ Dillon, this honestly might be a better outcome for you in terms of like what Aggie just said. Like you don't have to worry about AJ Dillon now siphoning goal line carries or anything from Aaron Jones because you have, the one guy that they're going to give everything to. Aaron Jones will be back after the bye 2 to 3 weeks, but we will see. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure, did they have a bye in week 13 or 14? I can't remember exactly what week it is, but if it's week 13, like I think it is, because I have Adams and I'm pretty sure that's what happens. But yeah, if it's week 13 after the bye makes a lot of sense as well, I would say. Proud AJ Dillon owner in Dynasty and Redraft. Yeah, I have AJ Dillon in one of my Dynasty leagues too, so that's definitely good news. I am actually tanking though, so I don't really need to use him right now, but I might try and sell him to a contender with the trade deadline mostly this week. When is your guys' trade deadlines? Also, comment that down below in the comment section because I need to know when I got to stop making trade target videos. I love making them, so I hope your trade deadline is not for a while. But my trade deadline is actually this week in my home league. So I'm curious when your guys' trade deadline is. Usually it's around Thanksgiving for most people. So, what to do with Lockett? got burned this week. Do I start Judy as a safer flex going forward? I mean, I don't know who they're playing next week off the top of my head, but Tyler Lockett has always been a guy that is very boomer bust. And I talked about him on Thursday as a guy that if he had a big performance, which he could have had in this game, he didn't obviously, but if he had a big performance in this game, you could have sold this guy for a lot because he had a big performance before the bye, and then Russ back, obviously a lot of people would have bought in to Tyler Lockett. But yeah, if Judy has a better matchup, I would say he's fine to start over a guy like Tyler Lockett. Down to spicy by 22 with Henderson, Kupp, and Higbee left. He has Ayuk hoping to pull off the dub. I think you're probably good there between those. Henderson and Kupp especially, like those guys are just so guaranteed to their roles. It's pretty hard to not see them do well. Steven Smith. Okay, so you said week 13. Yeah, that's when their bye is. Who's Deebo's matchup? I need 25 plus points possible or slim. Okay, so I'm guessing what you're curious about is if he's going to see Jalen Ramsey is probably what you're asking. So I'm going to go to the 49ers thing right now. Individual matchups. So Darius Williams is back, who's obviously a very good corner in his own right. Deebo Samuel is expected to split time between Rochelle and Darius Williams on the outside because he doesn't typically play in the slot very much. So I'd imagine he's going to avoid Jalen Ramsey for the most part. But again, with shadow matchups, they do matter to some degree. Even if Jalen Ramsey was shadowing Deebo Samuel, which I don't think he's going to, then they're going to use Deebo in creative ways to get him away from Jalen Ramsey. And that's kind of, you don't really have to worry about that too much. So Deebo should be in for a good spot here. Like the Rams have good corners, but they haven't been exceptionally strong against fantasy wide receivers. So, yeah, the 20th. Okay. Week 11. Okay. So November 25th. Okay. So it sounds like a lot of you guys have your trade deadlines in the coming weeks, whether it's going to be week 11, week 12, or week 13. So I'll probably continue to do trade targets as long as people want to. And on the trade targets video tomorrow, I'll ask in the comments for people to comment them down below because I don't want to make trade targets videos when everybody's had their trade targets or their trade deadline already happened. So up 19 and my opponent has Deebo left. Should I be nervous? Yeah, I probably would based on how Deebo's performed this year. I commented yesterday to start AJ Dillon. Shout out to everyone that saw and moved on it. Yeah, man. Those like big brain, galaxy brain plays where you're like, yo, just start this guy. Like, even though it's probably not the like best from like a process standpoint, I get gut feelings like that too. And sometimes it's fun when you get those right. But like, if you acted on that, good for you. I don't think I would have had the courage to do that. Thoughts on CEH long-term with Darrell Williams doing well. I think you guys know my thoughts on CEH long-term by now. Like I have never been a huge CEH fan. I liked him coming out of college. I thought he was overdrafted though. I actually had CEH rated higher than Cam Akers. He was my fourth running back in that class. I had it Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, who's the one I'm missing? DeAndre Swift, and then CEH, and then Cam Akers because Cam Akers had the concerns with his offensive line and some of the production that we didn't see from him. But when CEH went to the Chiefs, initially I thought it was a great landing spot because this guy's going to get, receiving workload. They're going to use him in like the Kareem Hunt role. He's going to get a lot of touchdown opportunity. And I admit, I bought into CEH to the point that I drafted him 6th overall in my home league that year, like that he was a rookie, and I got burned by it. But at the same time, like with CEH, even though I was a fan at one point, like you have to pivot. What we've seen on the field is not good enough. Like he is not a good enough player to command the type of value and the type of steam that he gets as a dynasty asset, as a player in fantasy in general. So I think people are starting to catch on to that now. Like, I don't think anybody's just going to like blindly buy into the CEH as the Chiefs running back narrative anymore. I think the time to sell CEH was before this season when people still had, the hope that he could become this elite running back. And I just don't think it's going to happen. Now, is Darrell Williams going to take over his job? Probably not. But I think the fact that Darrell Williams is doing better than what CEH was doing in terms of his role and his fantasy production, it's not good for CEH long-term. It doesn't bode well for his long-term value. And anybody who's trying to spin it as a good thing is probably like telling on themselves because you can't possibly take away what has happened the last 2 years of CEH's career as a positive thing compared to the expectations that he had coming in as the Chiefs starting running back. And if they drafted DeAndre Swift or J.K. Dobbins or Cam Akers or Jonathan Taylor, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. If Jonathan Taylor was a Kansas City Chief, he would be the RB1 in Dynasty, and it wouldn't even be close. It wouldn't even be close. Same with DeAndre Swift. I don't even think it'd be close if he was a Kansas City Chief right now. It's actually pretty wild to me that people will still buy into CEH long term when we've seen enough evidence to know that this guy just simply isn't going to be an elite running back in the NFL. So I want to go into one other takeaway that I had. And I mean, you guys probably knew this was coming as the resident Zach Wilson guy, but can we like give up on Mike White yet? Like, holy shit, that was a bad performance. And I kind of like, I saw that coming, right? Like I talked about it on Thursday or Friday. I can't remember which day it was, but I was like, the Mike White fairy tale is coming to an end. Like it's not going to last. This Bills defense is too good. And again, hopefully, if you're rebuilding, we talked about Zach Wilson as a prime trade target for a rebuilding team in Dynasty because people were giving up on him after 5-6 games. Like, and again, I talked about his schedule already. He played the New England Patriots 2 times. Bill Belichick, the rookie quarterback assassin. He played the Carolina Panthers in week 1 when they were a fully healthy defense. JC Horn and stuff were out there. They were looking like a dominant defense to start the year. And then he also played the Broncos in Mile High. So rookie quarterback in that kind of environment, the only 2 like winnable games he had was one in London, which is also a tough environment to play in because it's like a time difference and things of that nature. The one game where he had a pretty easy matchup, it wasn't a hard defense, he did well in against Tennessee. So that's like what you're hoping for. The fact that they got Mike White to play well and Josh Johnson to play well in the system means that this coaching staff knows what they're doing. And once Zach Wilson, who's playing the hardest position in sports as a rookie coming from a smaller school where he didn't have high level of competition. We saw this with Josh Allen his rookie year. Josh Allen did not look good to start his career. And then he got injured his rookie season. He came back and he looked a little bit better. And then his second year, he looked a little bit better. And then, of course, in his third year, he blew up. So Zach Wilson, again, I've talked about, he's kind of a project quarterback. He's going to be a guy that needs to be coached up. But if this coaching staff knows what they're doing, this GM front office knows what they're doing, I believe in the long-term ability of Zach Wilson. So hopefully you guys did buy low on him while Mike White was somehow convincing people that he was a bad quarterback. So up 27.9, and my opponent has Henderson left, 28-point game possible. For Henderson, I mean, it's going to depend on scoring format. If it's like a full PPR league, it's definitely possible because, you know, it's just easier to score points in that. It's possible, but I would say you're probably like, 85, 90% chance you're going to win that. Javonte, 57% of the snaps, and Melvin fumble. Did we finally make it? Okay, so this was another one of my takeaways. And no, I don't think we finally made it. I don't think this is a start of a new era where Javonte is the starting running back. But if I'm not mistaken, I think they are on bye this week in week 11. So maybe that we'll hear something coming out. I believe, yeah, they are on bye this week. So the fact that we did see a little bit of a glimmer of hope now going into the bye week, maybe we see that post-bye rookie bump for Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams looks incredible. And that touchdown he had called back may have lost me my fantasy matchup because I'm currently up by, I actually have to check right now. So I need a Monday miracle, just like some of you guys saying in the comments. I'm only up by 15 right now, and my opponent has Matthew Stafford playing. So I need an absolute dud from Matthew Stafford. And I don't think it's going to happen, so I'm probably going to lose. But yeah, Javonte getting the 57% of snaps, he was out-touched by Melvin Gordon, and Melvin Gordon did get into the end zone. But of course, Javonte did have a touchdown called back. He also had a couple of other runs called back by holding penalties and things of that nature too. So good news that Javonte is starting to make some progress. Hopefully, coming out of the bye week, we start to hear some things that they're going to try and, feature him more or something like that. But definitely good news for Javonte. Again, the baseline thing that we need, especially for Dynasty, and again, we're primarily in redraft season, so some of you guys might not care about this, but from a Dynasty perspective, Javonte Williams is a stud running back. That's all we need. We know right now. We know he hasn't gotten the workload. He isn't, quite producing for fantasy yet, but we know he's a great running back already. Like we've seen enough to say this dude is going to be a great running back in the NFL. He looks like, DeAndre Swift looked his rookie year. J.K. Dobbins looked last year. Cam Akers looked last year. We're seeing it with Javonte Williams already, and the volume will come for a guy like that. It's undeniable how good he is. So December 1st, so you got a bit of a later trade deadline. I'll probably make, based on some of the feedback you guys have just given me, I would say I'll probably make trade targets videos into like week 13, probably. And week 14 is probably when I'll stop going into the playoffs, obviously. But yeah, so let me know also on Tuesdays, because I won't be making trade targets videos at that point. Let me know what other videos you guys would want me to make, given, it'll be close to playoffs or whatever. I could probably make a stashes for the playoffs type of video as well. But yeah, just let me know in comments. I was offered as soon as the injury happened, Higgins and Dillon for Chase. But I said to him, if it's a tear, I might do it. If not, then no. So he offered you T. Higgins and A.J. Dillon for Jamar Chase. You don't know if you want to do it, obviously, because you might only have A.J. Dillon for 3 weeks or something like that. I would probably I mean, it's all going to depend on your team, right? If you're a playoff team, if you're a 7-3 team, an 8-2 team, a 9-1 team, a 10-0 team, I just stick with Chase. But if you need to win, like if you're 5-5 after this week, I don't mind doing that trade and securing a guy that's going to help you win the next couple of weeks and push you into the playoffs. And even if Aaron Jones is back, like you're going to need to win games to get into the playoffs anyway. So I would say that's a pretty fair trade, but I'd probably lean with Chase if you're in any kind of winning position right now. Rhamondre Stevenson saved me this week. Okay, yeah. So another takeaway from this week was obviously Rhamondre Stevenson. Another guy that when you watched him in college, the film was there. Like he looked like a good player at Oklahoma, but he had so many red flags up and down his profile that it was really hard for me to buy into him. I liked his film. I had a high film grade on Rhamondre Stevenson, but he had no production in college. He wasn't the biggest, like the best athlete in the world. He was kind of like a plotter athlete, but at his size, it was okay for him to be like a 4-6 type running back or whatever. But yeah, he looked good, man. And he looked explosive. He had 4 explosive runs, according to PFF, what I saw earlier today. And honestly, like he's going to make it challenging for Damian Harris to be anything more than what Damian Harris has really been, which is, a 15 to 20 carry per game back in a good game script, right? Like Damian Harris needed great matchups, needed a good game script in order to be successful. And anytime anything went wrong, he would bust for fantasy, right? That's exactly what we saw out of Damian Harris all season. It's what we saw out of him for the majority of last year, too, when he was the starting running back. So Rhamondre Stevenson, I think he's earned himself a bigger role. Now, we don't really know how they're going to handle this thing because they've made him like inactive a bunch of times. But I would say Rhamondre Stevenson, from my like eye test and from my money, looks like as good as Damian Harris at the very least. And the interesting thing, too, is that they're using him a little bit more in the receiving game than they use Damian Harris. And they're using him in pass protection, and they're trusting him a lot more than they would with Damian Harris, which to me is a little strange because I didn't think Rhamondre Stevenson's strengths at all were pass protection in college. I thought he was really bad at it. So the fact that they're kind of trusting him with that role is definitely encouraging for Rhamondre Stevenson. Again, another guy that if nothing else, we're taking away the baseline information, same way we did with A.J. Dillon in his rookie year with Rhamondre Stevenson, because I think it's kind of like a good comparison. Rhamondre Stevenson is another guy that is a good target for you guys who are rebuilding in Dynasty, because I don't know what his role is going to be the first year or two in his career, but Damian Harris will be a free agent pretty soon. He was drafted in 2019, so he's played 1, 2, and now 3 years on his rookie contract. He will be a free agent after next year, and maybe Rhamondre Stevenson gets an opportunity at that point. Again, this could be an A.J. Dillon situation where we're just looking at Rhamondre Stevenson and we're saying, this guy's good. That's all we need to know sometimes to buy in Dynasty. This guy's a good player. And eventually it'll work itself out. Maybe it's a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever. Maybe it's only in the case of injury. Who knows? But if nothing else, we know Rhamondre Stevenson's a good player. So if you guys have him in Dynasty, which I do in one league, I did trade away a couple weeks ago in one of the leagues that I'm tanking in. I traded away, Tom Brady and Gronkowski and Deebo Samuel, a couple of like win now pieces. And I got a big package of draft picks and young players. And Rhamondre Stevenson, Sam Darnold, Terrace Marshall, Cole Kmet were the players that I got. And then I got 3 first rounders as well. So Rhamondre Stevenson was one of those players. And I'm glad to know that he's at least a good player. And he's a guy that can help my fantasy roster going forward. So that's good news about Rhamondre Stevenson. Again, Damian Harris has a concussion, so I highly doubt he's going to be out next week unless it's like a serious concussion. So I would say this was probably like a 1 week thing for this year at least, but we'll have to monitor the usage of this backfield going forward. How do you think Moore will do with Cam at quarterback? Yeah, DJ Moore has been really disappointing as of late, obviously. This was another tough matchup for him, and I believe his schedule is starting to open up a little bit. So again, I have talked about him as a trade target in the past. I might have to talk about him again just because his price just keeps going down and keeps going down to the point that you're going to have to get this guy at some point. And Cam Newton, I don't know if he helps DJ Moore or not, but I don't think he can be any worse than what we're seeing out of Carolina quarterback play right now with PJ Walker and Sam Darnold most of the year. So I would say, if nothing else, he's probably going to be the same, if not a little bit better with Cam Newton. And then obviously the ceiling for DJ Moore is that Cam Newton is not back, but like is a lot better than we're anticipating. And DJ Moore can get back to being DJ Moore from what we saw at the beginning of the season. Mac Jones, the best rookie quarterback? I would say so far this year, absolutely, he's been the best rookie quarterback. But I want to see how everybody closes out their season, right? Because Justin Fields is starting to turn a corner. We haven't really seen a whole lot of Trey Lance. Maybe he gets in there at some point. Trevor Lawrence, I would say of all the quarterbacks, the one I'm most concerned with in terms of like play is Trevor Lawrence. And Again, Zach Wilson, obviously, he didn't play well at the beginning of the year either. But I have, we'll have to see how everybody closes out the season because I have optimism that all of these quarterbacks are going to be good because I liked all of their film. I thought this was a very good quarterback class, especially for fantasy, with the ability that all these guys have to run, except for Mac Jones, obviously. So, I would say as of right now, absolutely, Mac Jones has been the best rookie quarterback, but I want to see more out of Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and Trevor Lawrence before I say anything distinctly that he is the best quarterback from this class or anything like that. Dylan is the greatest handcuff, have almost 100% stake in both. I actually did a handcuff video. If you guys recall, in July or whatever, I ranked the best handcuffs in fantasy football. And I'm almost certain I had AJ Dillon as the number one handcuff in fantasy football. I can't remember exactly who I had. If anybody remembers that video, let me know. I'm actually going to look back in the archives real quick just to see where I actually had AJ Dillon in the ranks. He had to have been up there because I know it was like him, Pollard, and Madison, I believe, in that like elite tier of handcuffs, because those guys, like if anything happened to their starters, you knew they were going to be on the field. They were going to be heavily involved in all of the work basically. And I'm actually seeing if I can find this right now. Must draft running back. Okay. Yeah. So I have it right now. I had Kareem Hunt as the number one handcuff in fantasy, and I had AJ Dillon as the number two handcuff in fantasy. So I thought AJ Dillon was right behind Kareem Hunt. If anything happened to Aaron Jones, which obviously has happened now, this guy's going to win people leagues, and it could happen, right? Like 3 to 6 weeks is the timeline we're given for Aaron Jones owners' sake. Hopefully it's 3 weeks, but if you have AJ Dillon and not Aaron Jones, you're hoping it's probably closer to 6 weeks. Dynasty, thoughts on Myers long-term? Jacoby Myers, again, he's kind of following the career path of a guy like Jarvis Landry, I would say, or a guy like Tyler Boyd or someone like that. So I would say that's kind of the value of what we're talking about here. Jacoby Myers and those guys are usually undervalued in the offseason for people who are contending. So if you need fantasy production going into a season, let's say you look at your roster and you're like, I have a really good team, but I'm lacking depth or something like that. Going to trade a 3rd round pick for a guy like Jacoby Myers this offseason might not be the worst deal in the world, because people are always hyper focused on upside in the offseason, and Jacoby Myers is quite literally the opposite of upside. So a guy like that is definitely somebody that you can go out and acquire for cheap. And Steven says, should I trade AJ Brown and Mitchell for CMC? I probably wouldn't. And it's nothing to do with, if CMC was 100% healthy, I absolutely would do this trade. But we've seen this guy already like retweak his hammy like 3 times this year. So I'm not fucking around with CMC right now. Like if you have CMC, just hope he stays healthy, but I'm probably not going to target him in trade, because the quickest way to torpedo your fantasy season is to trade for a guy like CMC, and then he, re-aggravates his hamstring injury and then shut him down for the year. So I probably would not go out and trade for Christian McCaffrey right now, based on what I've seen from him so far. What do I think will happen with Henderson and Akers next year? Again, that is going to be one of the most debated and talked about things all offseason, in my opinion, because to me, Akers was always the better running back, and it was not even close, in my opinion. I never thought Darrell Henderson was very good. I know Darrell Henderson's flashed this year, and he's been, good in spurts, but I just think if Cam Akers would have stayed healthy, I seriously think we're talking about a guy that is a top 3 running back in fantasy right now. And it wouldn't even, he would have been like Jonathan Taylor level in terms of his production this year. So that is definitely something that I'm still holding on some faith to with Akers. But of course, he is coming off of a serious injury. And we talked about this with Angelo, I believe, a couple of months ago, or Edwin. I can't remember exactly who we talked about this. I think it was Edwin. When Akers comes back, yes, he could be 100%, right? Like he could be 100% back from the Achilles injury, but is the coaching staff going to believe that he's 100% back from the Achilles injury? Are they going to 100% entrust him and be like, okay, yeah, Cam, we had this role in mind for you in your sophomore year. We're just going to give you that exact role now, even though you're coming off of a serious injury. I'm not sure, because any running back can be good in a workhorse role. I firmly believe you give any running back 20 to 25 touches, they're going to be good for fantasy, but coaches don't just give 20 to 25 touches away easily, because some people can't handle it. And I think Henderson's personally one of those people. And Akers to me was not one of those people, because we saw him do it all 3 years at Florida State. He was just an absolute workhorse running back. So I know that he can handle that workload. It's just, is Sean McVay going to willingly trust him with that workload, knowing that he has a guy like Henderson who, is good enough running back to at least spell him a decent amount. So it's going to be interesting to see play out. Again, I still think Akers is a guy that I'm targeting right now in trades if you can get him for kind of like cheap. or anything like that, if you can get him for a second round pick and a small wide receiver or something like that, then I would try and make some trades like that. But it's going to be an interesting situation going forward. Stevenson saved me this week. Yeah, he saved a lot of people. Hawkinson got one target. Why is Goff so bad? Goff is really bad. I have no idea what the hell that was. And that kind of transitions into one of my takeaways. But DeAndre Swift, man, has to be the most unlucky running back I've ever seen, because DeAndre Swift legitimately had 39 opportunities. He had 33 carries and 6 targets. And not only that, but he played 66 of 71 snaps. He played every snap but 5 at the running back position. And on those 5 snaps, both of his backups scored touchdowns, and like 20+ yard touchdowns too. Godwin Igwe scored a touchdown at like a 35-yarder or whatever it was. He's a former defensive back. He was an undrafted free agent for Tampa Bay a couple of years ago. And I remember when we picked him up, everybody was like, oh, this guy's like a 3rd-round talent at safety. And he's, taking touchdowns away from DeAndre Swift. And then Jamar Jefferson, who also got injured in that game. So we'll have to kind of monitor that. But he also scores a touchdown. DeAndre Swift, man, oh, man, he was so close to having a monster game. If those guys just don't score those touchdowns, this could have been a 30, 40-point game for DeAndre Swift against a very good Steelers run defense too. So DeAndre Swift, again, he has to be one of the most unlucky running backs I've ever seen in terms of this game that we just saw. Steven Smith, no. Mike White lasted longer than I thought he would, but as soon as I heard the locker room was chanting his name, I thought it was going to crash and burn. Sad to see, but come on. I feel like every year we have one of these like Cinderella story quarterbacks, right? A couple of years ago, it was Devlin Hodges. And then we just have these guys that pop up for like a game or two, and everybody's excited about them. Taylor Heineke was kind of like that last year. Gardner Minshew a couple of years ago. We just see these guys pop up, and they're not, they don't have a lot invested in them. They're not high draft capital guys, anything like that. They're just guys that pop up and they have like a big performance in prime time, and then suddenly everybody thinks they're good. And Mike White was just a typical example of that. He had a 4-touchdown game where basically his running backs did all the work and everybody did all the work after the catch. And speaking of the Jets, even in what was a horrible game script, a horrible matchup, we still saw Elijah Moore be awesome. So Elijah Moore, again, buying high on wide receivers is smart. And you guys might not think so because I talk about buy lows all the time, right? But when you buy high in Dynasty specifically, it's usually a good investment, right? If you would have bought high on T. Higgins last year, like midway through his rookie year, or Justin Jefferson or any of these guys, their value has already, doubled by now compared to what you probably bought them for. So specifically, Javonte Smith and Elijah Moore are 2 guys, and probably Rashad Bateman too, are 3 guys that I'm willing to buy high on right now. So if you can get them for, a future, like I'm willing to give up a future first for these guys, a second, like a first this year. You might even be able to give the, if you're going 2022 first for Elijah Moore, you might even be able to get the Elijah Moore manager to throw in something just to even it out if you want to try and go for that. But I'm willing to give up a future first for all 3 of those wide receivers because I've seen it. I know they can play in the NFL. I knew they were good prospects. Probably, honestly, Devontae Smith, Rashad Bateman, and Elijah Moore would be top 3, top 5 prospects again in this wide receiver class anyway. Plus, this class doesn't have great quarterbacks, great running backs ahead of these wide receivers. So if you want a Treylon Burks, if you want some of these elite wide receivers from this year's class, you're going to need a top 5 pick. So if you have a late first round pick, you're looking at, John Mechie and some of these other like back end wide receivers. I would rather have the guys that I just talked about, Moore, Bateman, and Smith long term than those first round picks. And I think you can get that done. If you were to send a first rounder to the fantasy manager for Devontae Smith or whatever, like think if you sent 1 first rounder for Justin Jefferson midway through his rookie year last year, right? It just makes a whole lot of sense. Like we have Devontae Smith, who has already 600 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns in 10 games. He's going to have a 1,000-yard rookie season. Like that's not something to take lightly. And I think Elijah Moore is just going to close out the season phenomenally. That was a terrible matchup against the Bills, and he still got there. He still had a 50-yard game and a touchdown, and both of it, like all the plays that he made, just looked phenomenal. So definitely good news on those guys. I have both of them in a dynasty league, thankfully. So that's great news. AJ worries me about double coverage every game. It's brutal. Yeah, AJ Brown is definitely going to get a lot of attention without Julio, without Derrick Henry in the lineup. But again, the Lattimore matchup, we've just seen quarterbacks avoid Lattimore. It's not that Lattimore is like some elite corner, which, I mean, he is good in shadow coverage, but quarterbacks just avoid throwing at Lattimore because the Saints corners are just so bad outside of Lattimore that it makes sense not to throw at Lattimore. So, yeah, AJ Brown, I'm not worried about AJ Brown. So, if you guys are worried about AJ Brown, don't be. He's going to be a highly targeted guy. The previous couple games before this week, when Julio was barely not out there anyway, we're seeing AJ Brown command like a 35% target share. Like, it was legitimately elite numbers. So I'm not concerned whatsoever. What's Damian Harris's outlook going forward with Stevenson breaking out this weekend? I'm not concerned about Damian Harris going forward. I think he's probably going to have his role when he comes back, but Stevenson looked good enough to probably earn a little bit more touches as well. So we'll kind of have to see how that works going forward. What I think they should do is use Damian Harris and Stevenson and get Brandon Bolden off the field, because Brandon Bolden's been in the NFL for like 10 years and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to keep having him out there. But what do I know? So Damian Harris, again, he's the back end RB2 guy that you plug into in good matchups and you can sit in bad matchups. That's pretty much been his outlook all year. What are your thoughts on Schultz? He's my backup, but is he even worth a bench spot? I think Dalton Schultz is definitely worth a bench spot. If you don't need a backup tight end, if you have like Pitts or Kelsey or Waller or something like that, I'm okay just dropping them and picking up somebody else if somebody's available on your waiver wire. Okay, so Mike Williams going forward, his utilization remains advantageous, just no results. Yeah, that like Mike Williams, like I talked about on Friday or Thursday, his usage has basically been reverted back to what it's been the first couple of years of his career. He's clearly being used downfield, not being used as a short target anymore, or as like the X receiver that we saw at the beginning of the season. So what I'm thinking from Mike Williams is he's going to revert back to being Mike Williams. I don't think he's going to be, this elite wide receiver that we thought he could be, but Mike Williams is still going to be valuable for fantasy as like a wide receiver 3 because he's still the deep threat in a Justin Herbert-led offense. He's still going to have good weeks here and there. And outside of Eckler and Keenan Allen, they don't really have anybody else to command targets, although the tight ends are kind of contributing to some degree. So we'll have to see what happens with Mike Williams. But what can we expect going forward? I'm expecting, a similar guy to Tyler Lockett, right? You're going to get these big performances and you're also going to get these duds where he gets 4 targets or 3 targets, but you're also going to get the 9 for 150 and 2 touchdown games out of Mike Williams. So he's still a guy I'm okay starting if I need to, just definitely not exciting to see what we've seen so far. Been having trouble streaming quarterbacks. I have Cousins and Wentz, but I always seem to pick wrong. Any advice? If you want to, you could probably try and send out a trade offer for like a quarterback that you don't need to worry about. But again, with streaming quarterbacks, usually you can pick them out when to pick them and when not to. The problem with both of the guys that you have is that they both have elite running backs in their offenses, and those elite running backs sometimes have 2 touchdown games. And it's pretty hard to start Carson Wentz comfortably knowing that Jonathan Taylor is going to probably score a touchdown every game, if not 2 touchdowns some games. So that you're kind of hamstringing yourself anyway. Like in a game like what we saw yesterday with Carson Wentz, where he was playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, like I was okay starting him 100 times out of 100 because the matchup was there. Of course, the running backs did contribute. He didn't necessarily get there from a ceiling perspective, but again, those quarterbacks are going to be hit or miss. So if you want an upgrade at quarterback, I'm okay going to seek one. So you don't have to worry about that. Up by less than 5 or 5 full PPR, I have Ayuk. They have Higbee. Think I have a good chance. Yeah, I think you should be okay. Ayuk should outscore Higbee by 5. Full PPR, I need 13 from Higbee. Come on, man. Yeah, he's going to have to score a touchdown for that, for sure. Even in full PPR, he just doesn't get enough receptions to get up to 13 points without a touchdown, I would say. Who do I start next week? I have Najee, Montgomery, Kareem Hunt, or Javonte. Well, Javonte's on bye, so you don't have to worry about him. I would probably, again, I don't know who they're playing, so start-sit questions aren't exactly something I'm comfortable answering until like Wednesday when I actually start doing some research on the slate and things of that nature. But Najee and Montgomery are probably the 2 guys that I would go with if you can only start 2. Sell high on Michael Carter. Zach Wilson comes back, and we know he's always looking to make big pass plays. They said Mekhi Becton's coming back soon. I don't think you need to sell high on Michael Carter. You can, but I think Zach Wilson's going to adopt a little bit more of the check down mindset based on what he's seen from Mike White. Again, I think he's a smart kid. I think he's going to learn from what he was doing wrong at the beginning of the season. And I think he's going to notice that Michael Carter is an asset in the passing game and use him a little bit more. But again, that's a little speculation here and there. Mekhi Becton's a big deal. Coming back, I don't think you should undersell that, just because not only does he help Michael Carter from an efficiency standpoint, he makes this offense not as bad, right? Because he is going to severely help Zach Wilson stay out of pressure. And when Zach Wilson stays out of pressure, he's going to move the offense. He's going to score points. They're going to get first downs. And like, that's been a problem for the Jets, right? Like when we've seen them have horrible games, they've just been getting blown the hell out, right? Like they just can't get anything going on offense. And if Mekhi Becton's coming back, that definitely raises the floor of the Jets offense overall, which helps Michael Carter as a result. Crazy, before the season started, I traded Mike Will for AJ Dillon. I was pissed the first couple of weeks. Yeah, I definitely would have been too. And only held Dillon since I didn't want to give up on the trade. I think I won. Long term, I would say, yeah, you probably did win. AJ Dillon is definitely someone I really like long term in Dynasty, but Mike Williams is still going to be valuable as well. So I don't think it's a terrible trade nonetheless. Should I give up on Taysom Hill becoming QB1? Yeah, I'm not really sure why they don't give him the starting quarterback role, but by the looks of it, they just don't want to use him that way. They want to keep him in his gadget role and use a traditional quarterback as well to help keep defenses on their toes. Because I guess if you have Taysom Hill as your full-time quarterback, then it's easier for teams to game plan against you, right? They just have to stop Taysom Hill. Whereas Simeon presents a couple challenges that Hill doesn't, because he's a better deep passer and things of that nature. So it adds more dimensions to your offense, which is, I think, something that Sean Payton loves about having Taysom Hill. So that makes a whole lot of sense to me. Pitts, Renfro, Moss for Kelsey. The Kelsey owner's team is in shambles with injuries. Can I pull it off? I'm okay making that trade. I think that's a worthy trade to make. Pitts is definitely not in the class of Kelsey. I know it's like it kind of goes back and forth each week, but with the Falcons offense dealing with so many injuries, and that's another takeaway that I had, was Cordero Patterson left this game with a mid to high ankle sprain, is basically what it's being called. Now, I don't really know exactly how long he's supposed to be out with that kind of injury, but I'd imagine he could miss a game or two here and there. And with Patterson dealing with an injury, it's just Kyle Pitts out there. Like, they don't have anything else. And again, that's good news for Pitts' volume. He's going to get good volume, but he's the number one focus of defenses. This offense just can't move the ball. Like, the Cowboys defense is good. The pass rush is good, but they should have moved the ball and scored more than they did. Like, didn't even put up a fight in that game. So that's not great news for Kyle Pitts. Just the offense needs to be better for Kyle Pitts to be better. And hopefully, I mean, I don't know what Calvin Ridley's doing right now, but they could really use a guy like him. So yeah, I would say that deal's pretty good for Kelsey if you can pull that off. Ertz or Muth rest of season. Wanted to trade for a top tight end, but I finessed so many trades so people didn't want to trade with me. Dude, that happens sometimes. I've had that happen to me as well. Sometimes when you make some sharp trades, people just think that you're trying to pull a fast one on them and they don't want to trade with you anymore. But I personally would prefer Pat Freiermuth. He's, again, he ran 31 of 52 routes this past week, which is, again, around that 60% range that he's kind of been hovering around. And he's going to continue to probably grow into that role due to him being a rookie tight end. So I'd rather have Freiermuth the rest of the season. What do we do with Russell Wilson? That was just a bad game. I'm not taking too much away from that game with Russell Wilson. I would say he's going to be fine going forward. That was just a bad game coming off a multi-week injury. He just looked rusty. With AB coming back, trade Godwin. If so, for who? I'm honestly fine keeping Godwin, because Antonio Brown makes this offense better. And if Antonio Brown was out there, I don't think they would have lost this game. I think Antonio Brown is that good, and that has that much of a connection with Brady, and presents a new set of challenges for the defense, to the point that they can't, focus on Mike Evans. They can't focus on Chris Godwin when Antonio Brown is out there roasting their number 3 corner. So with AB coming back, and I hope he is back this week for the sake of my Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who laid a fucking egg against the Washington football team. That was an absolute joke of a game, by the way. Antonio Brown coming back helps the offense, raises all ships, rising tide type of effect for me. So I'm not trading Chris Godwin or Mike Evans with AB coming back. I really don't care what the target shares are with Antonio Brown on the field or without. I think the offense is just significantly better with Antonio Brown out there. Good morning, Bush. Good morning, gents. Yep. What's up? Saw Brady stink it up live yesterday. Oh, so you were at the game. That's definitely not ideal. I'm actually going to be at Colts and Bills this weekend. So I will not be on the Sunday morning live stream, because I will be at a tailgate in Buffalo. So Danny said he'll go live for, 45 minutes or whatever before the games to ask him questions. But if you guys have questions for me, you can just DM me on Twitter Saturday night or Sunday morning, and I'll get to them. But yeah, I will be in Buffalo for Colts Bills. Hopefully Jonathan Taylor can have a big performance so I can see that live, but I'll probably be repping the home team for Buffalo, because I'm going with a couple Bills fans too. Picked up Robbie Anderson. I think Camrell favored him. I mean, yeah, he's worth a speculative ad. I probably wouldn't throw him into your lineup anytime soon, though. I'm 5-5. My wide receivers are DK, Chase, Cook, or Cooks, I'm guessing. Emmanuel Sanders, Gallup. Running backs are Najee, Chubb, Pollard. Yeah, I think you're in good shape there. Nick Chubb should be back this week, so you're okay there. I can't remember when the Browns bye week is. I don't remember if they've already had it or not. It might be coming up soon, though. Devontae Smith looking like a legit wide receiver 2 the rest of the season. Yeah, I think he is. And it's tough because Jalen Hurts is an inconsistent passer. He looked pretty good yesterday, but he's going to have games where he doesn't look like a great quarterback, and he's going to have games where he does look like a good quarterback. And that's just kind of the bumps and bruises you're going to deal with Devontae Smith. Again, everything that goes into player analysis is really, it all comes down to consistency, because the player's ability can only take them so far, right? Terry McLaurin, great wide receiver, right? Like excellent wide receiver. DJ Moore, excellent wide receiver. Their ability can only take them so far. If their quarterback is so bad that they can't get them the ball, then that's a problem, right? And Devontae Smith is going to have probably 1 or 2 games where Jalen Hurts just shits the bed and doesn't look good. Nick Sirianni can't call a proper offensive game plan, and Devontae Smith's going to disappoint. But Devontae Smith looks like a good enough wide receiver that he's going to be a wide receiver 2 type caliber talent the rest of the year. And as long as Jalen Hurts can continue to play well, then I think he's going to be fine. Should have started Rashad over Jarvis at flex. The guy would have been closer in points. Is Jarvis not that guy anymore? Again, another thing that goes into it is just like Baker just didn't look good in this game. The Patriots had a good game plan for them. And I mean, Baker should be back this week. The injury that Baker suffered didn't seem serious. They said it was like a knee contusion, and it's like day to day. So he should be all right. He's a tough kid. He'll probably play. So I would say Jarvis, again, he's a flex play type of option. He's just not a guy that is going to be a very high ceiling option. So if you play Jarvis Landry, you got to, take into account that he's not a guy that's going to give you 40 points a week or even 20 points on most weeks. He's going to be between 5 and 15 points more often than not. So Jarvis Landry, again, he's not a guy that I'm super excited about, but if you don't have better options, I'm still okay starting him as like a flex option. Should I trade Eckler and DJ Moore for Hill and Montgomery? I would rather have Eckler and DJ Moore. That's pretty close, because I think the difference between Eckler and Montgomery is pretty big, but I also think that obviously the difference between Tyreek Hill and DJ Moore is pretty big. I think it's kind of just like a trade-off, whatever you're in need of. If you have great running backs, I'm okay making this move, downgrade at running back, get a better wide receiver. If you have great wide receivers, I'd probably just hold. I think it's a fair trade overall, though. Aaron Jones out 1 to 2 weeks. Thank God. Did that just come out? That news just come out? Yeah. The time frame. Okay. So the time frame means Packers. Yeah. 1 to 2 weeks per source on IR, which should sideline him at least 3 weeks. Now Packers can see how Jones progresses through this week and then make a determination. So that's good news for Aaron Jones for sure. If I were Green Bay though, like I said, I would probably just rest him until the bye. Right? Like you have Minnesota this week, Los Angeles, and then you have the bye in week 13. So what I would do if I was Green Bay is not play him until week 14, because you have a bye week. Like, why would you force him back like a week from now just to play one game against the Rams when you have a very capable backup, just your playoff team? You don't want to risk your star running back who you pay a lot of money. That's probably what I would do. I would say 2 weeks is probably what he's going to be out. 3, obviously, if you include the bye. So Aaron Jones owners, I would expect Aaron Jones back for week 14. And AJ Dillon owners, you're going to have a stud running back for 2 weeks, probably. Someone dropped Fant to the waivers and Goddard is injured. Do I drop Goddard for Fant? Yeah. If Goddard's injured, I didn't see the injury, but I did see that he left the game early. If Goddard is injured and it's anytime, and he said his bye is next week. Yeah. But so the Broncos are on bye this week. I would probably still rather have Fant than Goddard rest of season. It's close. If Goddard has an injury, I'd rather have Fant, but if Goddard was healthy, it's kind of like a toss up. So I would say I'd pick up Fant. If you can drop somebody else for Fant, I'd probably prefer that. But if Goddard is injured, I don't mind dropping him. I have Smith, Lamb, Ayuk, Higgins, Elijah Moore at receiver, but I only have Kamara at running back. My other running back options are Ty Johnson. What options should I use at wide receiver to get a running back 14 team, 2 running back wide receiver, 1 flex? Okay, so if you want to trade away a wide receiver to get a running back, that's usually always a tough thing to do because people overvalue running backs inherently. But if you can trade away, like if Brandon Ayuk has a great game and you can trade away Brandon Ayuk for like a fringe caliber running back, I'm trying to think like who would I want for Brandon Ayuk off the top of my head. If you can get, I don't think you're going to get anybody really relevant for Brandon Ayuk. Your best option to get a running back is probably to go for like a fringe option like JD McKissick or something like that. If you can trade, Brandon Ayuk for JD McKissick and like a receiver back, I don't mind making a move like that. Or if you can go, if anybody's worried about James Robinson, maybe you could trade Devontae Smith for him or something like that. I would say is probably a play that you could do. But yeah, you started 1-5, but now 5-5. That's good news, definitely. Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Logan Thomas supposed to come back this week. Should I put them back in the lineup or wait a week? It all depends on your other options. I'm okay putting both of those guys back into my lineup if I don't have a lot of other options. Aaron Jones out 2 weeks confirmed. Yep, just saw that. What is a reasonable offer for Darren Waller? I'm assuming you don't have Darren Waller. If you're going after Darren Waller, I would say that a reasonable offer is probably any kind of like wide receiver 2-3 type or any kind of running back 2-3 type. Or I guess probably solid running back 2 is probably what you're looking for. So if you can sell, trying to think, what running back could you sell for Darren Waller off the top of my head? I need to go to my rankings just so I can see a list of running backs right now. So in my rest of season rankings, I would say going after Darren Waller is going to be a little challenging because people know what they spent on Darren Waller, but I would be willing to give up a guy like Elijah Mitchell for Darren Waller, a guy like Kareem Hunt for Darren Waller, a guy like Michael Carter for Darren Waller. I think even like Michael Carter, you might not even have to give up that much for him. Josh Jacobs, I'd be willing to give up something like that. Speaking of running backs that had weird performances too, Antonio Gibson going for 2 touchdowns and 27 opportunities against the Buccaneers defense. I told you guys to sit him, so I was wrong, obviously, but I had to play him because I didn't have any other options, so I got the benefit of playing him with Antonio Gibson. But the fact that he had that good of a game is really encouraging to see. And not only that, but looking at his usage, let me just see this right now. How much was he used? Because he had a pretty good snap share from what I saw. So he played 46 of 73 snaps. So he was up around that 60% range, right? Like exactly what I talked about. That is the Antonio Gibson role. Like that's what we saw at the beginning of the season. He ran 14 routes. JD McKissic ran 18. So it was like pretty even from that perspective. 2 targets to 4 targets. Antonio Gibson hopefully is back because that is phenomenal news. That is the best possible news we could have gotten out of Antonio Gibson, that he looked pretty decent. He had a lot of touches. He was used in the receiving game. He wasn't reduced to, nothing by Jarrett Patterson like we saw before the bye week. So hopefully that week of rest really helped Antonio Gibson out. I actually nicknamed him on Sleeper. You guys can nickname your teams or your players. I nicknamed Antonio Gibson to should be sitting in an ice bath during the bye week because I just wanted him to get healthy. That was the only thing I wanted out of Antonio Gibson. So, man, he could be a guy that is like a somewhat of a buy low candidate, honestly. Like I might talk about him this week as a buy low candidate. It's risky still because he still is dealing with the injury, but if people don't know what happened, and unfortunately he did score 2 touchdowns, so they probably do know what happened, but the touches are important, right? And the usage is important, and that's definitely encouraging to see. Should I trade Zeke and Pitts for Mixon and Waller? I would rather have Zeke and Pitts, personally, Nathan. In a PPR league, I'm scared that Ryan definitely is going to impact Pitts for sure. But Waller and Pitts are still not a huge difference to me, and I would much rather have Zeke than Mixon. So that's kind of the difference in that trade. If it was like Darrell Henderson and Pitts for Mixon and Waller, I'm okay making that deal, but I think Zeke is like a cut above Joe Mixon. So that's why I kind of lean with that side. Cam Newton next week's start against Washington football team rather than Hurts against New Orleans. Yeah, Cam Newton is going to be a very interesting case study this week because I expect him to start next week, and he's going to probably fit into like fringe QB1 range just because of his rushing ability. Hurts against New Orleans is a tough matchup. I honestly might start Cam Newton there. I wouldn't. It's only Monday, so we'll have to see what happens. But Cam Newton against Washington is a much easier matchup than Hurts against New Orleans. So I actually do probably lean with Cam Newton as of right now. Logan Thomas or Knox next week. Looks like Knox got injured as well. It looked like a head injury or something like that. It was like a kind of a dirty hit in the end zone. We'll have to see what happens with him. Hopefully Logan Thomas is back this week. I would probably go with Logan Thomas, but we don't know if he's going to be limited to some degree. It does kind of help him that Ricky Seals-Jones also got injured, so he's not going to like be a 50-50 snap share guy or anything like that. But he's coming off a multi-week soft tissue injury, so I prefer not to start Logan Thomas if I can help it. Yep, got that news. Should I drop Beasley for Bateman when AB is back, and who is a running back to go after, such as Freeman? I'm okay dropping. I'd rather have Beasley than Bateman personally. Like it's pretty close, but Beasley is just a more secure guy in the offense that he plays in. Bateman is going to be a little bit more volatile, but I want to get Bateman on my team. So if Beasley is your only option to drop, I'm okay dropping Beasley for Bateman, but it is really close who I'd rather have. And AB, so I'm not really sure what the middle part of your question is. Who is a running back to go after, such as Freeman? If you're looking for like a fringe running back that you can go after in that like range where like Devontae Freeman is, some of the guys that I do like going after are probably like, see what the Miles Sanders owner's doing right now because he's on IR right now and he should be coming back soon. I would say same goes for Damian Harris. They might be down in the dumps right now because Rhamondre Stevenson had such a good game, so you might be able to get him for cheap as well. Myles Gaskin still getting the usage with Malcolm Brown on IR. So those are a couple like fringe running backs you could go after, but I'm usually not excited about trading for running backs like that if I can help it. Team top to bottom, any moves? Not that I can see. Your team looks pretty solid overall. You have like 3 great running backs, obviously. You're going to pick up Gibson. He's not even rostered. I guess it's an 8-team league, but still. Yeah, go pick up Gibson ASAP if you can. Who would you rather have in the flex rest of the season, Devontae Smith or Michael Carter? That's a pretty close question. I think they're both going to be just matchup dependent. I don't think you just put one in your flex and leave them in there all the rest of the season. I think it's just going to be a matchup thing with those guys. They're both kind of in that same territory of like top 30 wide receiver, top 24 running back, where again, week in, week out, depending on the matchup, you play one or the other. But I would say as of right now, I lean with the volume of Michael Carter, but it's pretty close. Is Darren Waller worth trading for still, or have we seen the best of him this year? What kind of offer should I make for him half PPR? I might put him in the trade targets video tomorrow because he's kind of at like a basement price right now. And it's a little shocking to see him get used as little as he's being used. Maybe defenses are just taking him away. Like, I'm really not sure what's happening with Darren Waller right now. Maybe it was all John Gruden, right? Like, John Gruden said Darren Waller was the best player he's ever been around. Maybe he just really loved Darren Waller, and that's why he was so involved in the offense. It would make a lot of sense, but I don't think Derek Carr is suddenly just going to not target Darren Waller down the stretch. So I would say Darren Waller is worth trading for still because I think you can get him for a fairly decent discount right now. So yeah, I still think he's worth trading for. Should I package Elijah Mitchell and another low-end wide receiver for Deebo? Yeah, I think that's a good move to make. Need a backup running back to cover for Chubb and JT on bye. Edmonds will miss both weeks. What running back can I get for Amari Cooper? If you're just looking for a bye week fill-in, I probably wouldn't trade away a guy like Amari Cooper just to get that. If you're dead set on that, I would try and get Antonio Gibson for Amari Cooper, or I would try and get Michael Carter or David Montgomery, maybe somebody in that range. James Robinson. If you can get somebody like that for Amari Cooper, I would try and do that. But if that's the only reason you're trading for him, I would probably just take the L that week if you can. Like if you're like a 7-3 team or something, and you can just waiver wire salvage a running back off waivers and throw him into your lineup and just hope for the best. I'd rather just do that than outright trade for somebody just to fill in a bye week. I'd rather just take the L that week probably. Pick one rest of season, full PPR, Bateman, Corey Davis, A-Rob, Michael Gallup. I'll take Bateman there. It's pretty close between him and Michael Gallup and probably Corey Davis. They're all kind of in the same tier. Allen Robinson, I'm not excited about just whatsoever, but I would go Bateman, Gallup, Davis, A-Rob is how I'd rank those guys. AJ Dillon, less stonks. Yes, less stonks for sure. I have Waller and Freiermuth. Is Freiermuth a top 10 tight end rest of the season? Because I might consider trading Waller for an RB2. What caliber of running back is Waller worth in your opinion? So if you're going to trade Waller away, it's sketchy because his value is at an all-time low right now. But if you can get James Robinson, Antonio Gibson, Leonard Fournette, Joe Mixon, someone like that, maybe even Aaron Jones too. If the Aaron Jones owner is needing wins, maybe you could trade that for Aaron Jones as well. I'm okay making that trade, but anything worse than that, if somebody's offering, if all they're willing to give you is Josh Jacobs, Chris Carson, Michael Carter, Javonte Williams, like anybody like that, I probably wouldn't trade Waller away for something like that. David Montgomery, you could lump into the guys that I talked about, James Robinson as well. Those guys would probably be what I'm looking for in that case. Freiermuth, top 10 tight end is a little rich. That's a pretty lofty expectation for a rookie tight end. I would rather have Waller and trade Freiermuth is probably what I'd rather do, because Waller is going to probably regress positively in terms of production. And Freiermuth is still a guy that's not quite playing the snaps and the allotment of plays that Waller is. So if you could sell high on Freiermuth because he is a guy that has a lot of steam behind him right now, I would rather sell him for a running back if you can. I have Evans, AB, Claypool for wide receivers, JT, Saquon, Javonte, Eckler at running back. Is it worth to trade Eckler for Hill? You already have JT and Saquon. Evans, AB, Claypool for wide. Yeah, you're kind of thin at wide receiver. I'm okay. I'm okay making the Eckler for Tyreek Hill as a trade because you got some pretty good running back depth and you're pretty weak at wide receiver with AB still dealing with injury and Claypool being out for a while now as well. I'm okay making that trade. What happened with AJ Brown? Will he bounce back? Shit happens. He's not going to have great games every single week. I'm not worried about AJ Brown. He'll be fine. Thoughts on Antonio Gibson after this week? Yeah, like I said, he's definitely trending upward. That is huge, huge news for Antonio Gibson because what I expected to see out of Antonio Gibson was like a 50% snap share running back. He gets 14 carries for 35 yards, one target for, 10 yards, and JD McKissic scores a touchdown because he's a receiving back and he gets a receiving touchdown. And JD McKissic runs way more routes than Antonio Gibson, plays about equal the amount of snaps. That's what I expected to see. But what I saw was Gibson obviously take over the role that we saw at the beginning of the season where he was, a 65% snap share running back, like exactly the percentage that he exactly played. He played 46 snaps out of 73. I got a calculator in front of me right now. Sorry. 63% of the snaps he played, right? And they had 40 routes. Antonio Gibson ran 14, which was 35%, which is actually an uptick over the last couple of weeks that we've seen from him. And JD McKissic only ran 18. So between those two guys, they ran a pretty close amount of routes. That's great news for Antonio Gibson. I think he must be recovering a little bit from this shin injury because I saw somebody say that like this, if you trace his healthy weeks, meaning he wasn't on the injury report or anything like that, he's actually been very good this year when he hasn't been on the injury report or, being used in that perspective. But when he's been injured and banged up, that's when he's, not performing, obviously. And unfortunately for him, I thought he was going to be a massive breakout candidate this year. I think he still would have been if he wasn't dealing with these injuries, but hopefully he can have, finish the season out strong. Opinion on Noah Fant dynasty wise, could he ever be a Kelsey, Waller, Kittle? Yes, he can. Absolutely. If Aaron Rodgers is the Broncos quarterback, if Deshaun Watson is the Broncos quarterback next year, or even just they get an upgrade at any kind, Noah Fant's going to be a phenomenal dynasty tight end. So yeah, Noah Fant, I called him beachfront real estate for a reason because he's a super talented tight end. He's super, he's got, super high draft capital, super great athlete. He just needs a better situation around him and that'll come eventually. Hopefully it'll come. I mean, the Broncos have been waiting for a quarterback since Peyton Manning, but hopefully they get one at some point. Top 5 receivers, rest of season PPR. So, the way I'd probably approach the top 5 receivers, for sure, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, and Tyreek Hill would be in my top 3. I would say would be the top 3 guys that I'd be talking about there. Then you got probably a sizable tier after that between Stephon Diggs, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, probably DK Metcalf as well. Keenan Allen might have a conversation as well there. So that's probably where I'm looking at as far as those elite receivers. But I would say Kupp, Adams, Hill are for sure the top 3. Should I trade Tyreek Hill for Swift and Lockett? Yeah, I would. If you're slim at running back and you need the running back help, I'm okay making that trade. If Saquon comes back this week, I'll cry of happiness. Yeah, so will I because I have him everywhere. Should I sell Pitts for an RB2? I have Dan Arnold and he looks like a number 1 wide receiver, even though he's a tight end. I probably wouldn't sell Pitts low like that. If you wanted, I'd rather sell Dan Arnold if you can get a running back for him. If you can get JD McKissic or something like that for Dan Arnold or anybody in that range, I'm okay making that trade. I probably would rather keep Pitts if I can. Hate to see the usage for Gibson after I traded him away 3 days ago. Yeah, that's why I was just holding on Gibson. I could have traded him. I could have traded him low, right? I could have sold him for like a tertiary wide receiver, but I knew he was going to eventually get healthy. Hopefully, like I didn't know actually. I assumed he would get healthy over the bye week, and that was definitely great to see. Are you going to do a rest of season rankings again? Yes, we will have one up on Friday. We were supposed to have it this Friday, like this past Friday, but Danny had a lot of school stuff going on. I had some things going on as well. So hopefully we're going to do that for you guys this Friday. Rest of season rankings we'll get to you before your trade deadline so you know who to trade for and things of that nature. And we'll do it in the same format that we did last time. We'll just briefly go over our quarterbacks. Nothing really changed. And we'll probably just highlight the changes from the last time we did it as well. And we'll just briefly go over the quarterbacks, and then we'll go more in depth, obviously, with the running backs and wide receivers, briefly go over the tight ends and, talk about how we'd approach it the rest of the season. So we will do that on Friday or at some point this week. We'll record it before Friday, obviously, and release it on Friday. I just traded Aaron Jones for Swift before this week. I guess you could say it was a good call. Yeah, great move. You definitely lucked out there. KC basically said, beat us with your wide receivers and took away Waller. We'll bounce back. Yeah. I mean, the problem is, though, is that like that game plan works against the Raiders, right? Because they can't beat you with your wide receivers, at least consistently. So, yeah, if that's the game plan, that's, not great news for Waller. But I would imagine Waller was the center of attention last year, too. So it's not a huge problem for me. So I'm going to answer the rest of the questions that I have here, and then I'm probably going to head out of here just for the record. Miles Sanders, rest of the season when he comes back, is he a fringe RB2? I would say so. Yeah, I think he's like a mid RB2 type. 10 team PPR, Russ, Hurts, Chubb. Okay. I'm guessing you just want me to comment on your team. I would say your team's in okay shape for sure. Your running backs are pretty solid. You got solid wide receivers. I think you're in good shape. DJ Moore, Carter, Devontae Smith are on my bench. What should I get if I package them? All three of them? Or just two of them together? I would say if you can package DJ Moore and Carter, Devontae Smith and Carter, DJ Moore and Devontae Smith, I'm looking for an elite asset in return. So if you can get, if you can take Carter and DJ Moore and go after Saquon Barkley, then I'm okay with that. Or if you can take Carter and DJ Moore and go after Devontae Adams, I'm okay with that. And Devontae Adams probably will be in the trade targets video this week because he had, a somewhat down game last week. Wasn't exactly the, he's been frustrating in general because of the COVID and because of Jordan Love starting. So people are going to be again, he's like a 90 cents on the dollar guy. He's not a guy that you're going to get for 50 cents on the dollar, but he is going to be somewhat discounted, I think. Any moves I should make? No, I think you're good there, Michael. I think you're in okay shape. Your quarterbacks are a little, concerning just because Russ and Hurts are somewhat inconsistent, but I'm not really concerned with your roster. I think you're in good shape. Melvin Gordon messed up my rivals parlay by allowing Jalen Hurts to get more yards than him. Yeah, that sucks. Antonio Brown. So is he back? And is Stevenson from the Patriots or Freeman from the Ravens? Okay. Antonio Brown should be back this week. I'd imagine he should be back this week. And if he's not back this week, he will be back next week. So that's kind of what I'm looking for with him. Stevenson from the Patriots or Freeman from the Ravens. I never want to be trading for running backs like that. Just as a personal policy, I just think those type of running backs are always like they're always churning on the waiver wire and stuff like that. So I usually don't want to give up any kind of like relevant assets for guys like that. I'd rather go after people with more secured roles if I can. So I personally am probably not going to be sending out offers for Stevenson and Freeman in traditional redraft leagues. Foreman waiver wire pickup. Yeah, absolutely. It looks like he got, I can check it right now, what he ended up getting out of that backfield, but I'm pretty sure it was quite a bit of the Titans backfield. Yeah, he got 11 carries, 21 of the snaps. Again, it looks like kind of like a three-way committee, but he is definitely worth a pickup. I'm not excited about him. Like, he's not a guy that I'm like breaking down the door to go get him, but not regress positively is bad English, progress positively. I mean, I'm pretty sure regression means regression to the mean, does it not? So if the mean is positive, you would regress positively. I don't know, maybe it's bad English, but mathematically it makes sense. I don't know if it's bad English or not, but mathematically regressing positively is a real thing. I'm late. Feeling better about Gibson. What about the Panthers offense? Yeah, feeling way better about Gibson. I already kind of talked about that. Usage definitely there. What about the Panthers offense? I think it's not going to change a whole lot. I know Cam Newton's got some excitement around him right now, but I think it's going to be more of the same. I think maybe upgrades DJ Moore a little bit, but I'm not, buying DJ Moore actively because I think he's going to be some superstar quarterback that's going to make this offense elite. How do you feel about Hawk SM? Yeah. TJ Hawkinson's definitely taken a tumble down from where he was initially, right? Like at the beginning of the season, we were like, holy shit, this is the next Darren Waller. But he's been a lot more inconsistent with his target share. Him and Fant are classic examples of they just need better quarterbacks. Like dynasty wise, I feel great about Hawkinson long term, but his usage is good also in the offense. The way that they're deploying him and stuff, he just needs a better quarterback. You guys are appreciate that. Hopefully you guys blow out my league mates. Don't find you. Oh yeah, true. We'll definitely try and avoid that if we can. Traded Gibson and Devontae, or Gibson, Devontae, and Goddard for Odell and Javonte. Which side you taking? Oof. I'm taking the Gibson side of that. I'm not huge on Odell Beckham Jr. Like I know he's exciting. I would rather have Devontae Smith than Odell Beckham Jr. rest of the season personally. And maybe that's a hot take to some people, but I got to see it with Odell. I know he's like he's a eternal optimist wide receiver for people in fantasy. Everybody's so excited about Odell Beckham all the time. I want to see him actually produce before I say that he's back. So I'm going Gibson, Devontae, and Goddard side for me, because I'd rather have Gibson than Javonte, and I'd rather have Devontae than Odell, and then Goddard's just a throw-in piece. Deontay Harris, #sleeper. Did he go off? I didn't even actually see what his stat line was. Robbie Anderson and Cam duo will be better than DJ Moore. I really hope not. Like, I have Robbie Anderson, so it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but I hope not for DJ Moore's sake. Can Knox be trusted? Lost Goddard, and thinking about Dan Arnold or Hunter Henry from waivers. I'd grab Hunter Henry probably before I'd grab Dan Arnold. But they're both great guys that should be valuable. Picked up Robbie as well. Thanks for all your content. Great knowledge, bro. Appreciate it, Nigel. Also traded Patterson, Henderson, Christian Kirk, and Adams for Devontae Smith, and a 2023 first. I would say it looks like you're rebuilding. If so, that's a great move, I think. Javonte, I would say Henderson and Adams for Javonte and Devontae are probably pretty fair in terms of like win now assets versus rebuilding. So I like that move there, Leonardo. Thoughts on having Rodgers, Aaron Jones, and Adams this week's game killed me. Yeah, I'm okay having a 3-stack of players like that if they're all in a good offense. But yeah, that's going to happen sometimes. Burrow or Hurts rest of season, half PPR. I'm 5-5. I'd rather have Burrow than Hurts personally. Deontay got 18 points in my NFL league. Okay, so good news for Deontay Harris. I actually almost played him in a DFS lineup, and I took him out last second. So bad news for me. But anyway, if you guys did enjoy this video, as always, hit the like button if you haven't already done so. If I answered a question of yours, the least you can do is hit me with a like button. Also, if you haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe button. We crossed 8,000 subscribers last week. You know, it's a race to 10K. We're hoping to get to 10,000 by, about the end of the season, if we can. So if you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. You will definitely not regret it. Eckler will be just fine. Don't worry about him. Cordell Patterson, also not worried about him. Like, outside the injury, obviously he should be out for a couple weeks, but I'm not worried about him. Like, I'm not going to trade him away or anything. Anyway, I'm going to head out of here. Peace out, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.